The katana is not just a weapon made to kill. Its purpose is to protect, and it must be made with care. The skill of a certified public accountant is like the sword of a samurai. We sharpen our skills to cut through the complicated financial knots that bind and limit people and companies. All must win. All must prosper. The great swordsmen of old were distinguished by 3 principles. We must demonstrate a professional mindset when dealing with intangible assets and intellectual property, as well as non-financial information, management philosophies, and strategies. By revitalizing companies and organizations, we give new life to communities and countries, accounting for the future. JICPA.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Jakarta, Indonesia. Welcome to the Regional Sustainability Assurance Webinar, the State of Play in Sustainability Assurance. This webinar is jointly organized by the ASEAN Federation of Accountants, or AFA, and our member organization, the Indonesian Institute of Certified Public Accountants, or IAPI, and the Japanese Institute of Certified Public Accountants, or JICPA. My name is Aoki Pratama, Executive Director of AFA, and I will be your host today. On behalf of AFA, it is truly an honor for me to welcome you to this webinar, the first in our series of webinars and discussions under our sustainability agenda for 2022, focusing on different aspects of sustainability. Today, you will be hearing from our international experts, representative of the International Federation of Accountants, or IFAC, the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board, or IAASB, IAPI, JICPA, and the Securities and Exchange Commissions, or SEC Thailand, whom I will have the privilege of introducing later. Before we begin, some housekeeping matters to observe. Please kindly keep your microphone on mute and video off during the webinar. You are kindly invited and encouraged to participate in our discussions by submitting your question via our Zoom QA functions, or for those of you joining us from YouTube, you're kindly invited to submit your questions via the YouTube chat function or chat column. Please kindly indicate your name and institution if possible. And feel free to do this throughout the entire session. You don't have to wait until the Q&A session. Please kindly note that this webinar is being recorded. If you wish to claim your e-certificate of participation, kindly ensure that you are fully registered to attend this webinar in full and complete the post-event survey. So a link to the survey will be provided towards the end of this webinar. You will have exactly 24 hours to complete the survey. A failure to complete the survey will lead to non-issuance of your e-certificate. So please remember this. A link to download the presentation slides will also be provided once you complete the survey. And last but not least, IAPI members are required to upload your e-certificate into your account to claim your unstructured CPD hour. Ladies and gentlemen, to start our webinar, I would like to first welcome the Treasurer of AFA, Mr. Henry Tan, to deliver his welcoming remarks. Henry?
Thank you, Aoki. Bapak Dr. Hendra Tanus Jaya, President of the Indonesian Institute of Certified Public Accountant. Our presenters, Mr. David Madden of the International Federation of Accountants, or IFAC, Ms. Lynn Provost of the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board, or IAASB, Ibu Kusumaningsi Angkawijaya of IAPI, representing the Japanese Institute of Certified Public Accountant, or JICPA, Mr. Shinichi Takinaka of Deloitte Touche Tohmatsu LLC, and Ms. Srirupa Supantanet, Deputy Secretary General of the Security and Exchange Commission, Thailand. Fellow ASEAN accountants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Singapore. And on behalf of AFA, welcome to our Regional Sustainability Assurance webinar, organized in collaboration with IAPI and JICPA. As a continuation to AFA's 2021 efforts in promoting the sustainability agenda, these sessions will be the first in a series of webinars planned for AFA's 2022 Regional Sustainability Agenda. Today's webinar will provide an important platform for the ASEAN accountancy profession to gain insights and awareness on sustainability assurance through sharing and direct engagement with representatives from IFAC and IAASB, as well as our colleagues from Indonesia, Thailand, and Japan. The topic on sustainability has been of top priority in the last couple of years due to the massive impact it has on the various aspects of life, including the accountancy profession. Sustainability is no longer good to have, but a must-have. Any organization that does not put this on the agenda may face its own demise. IFA recognizes this and acknowledges the importance of building awareness of the sustainability agenda amongst our stakeholders and member organizations. Therefore, we strive to bring you the latest updates and developments on sustainability in today's webinar. One key development in the area of sustainability is the formation of the IASB, or International Sustainability Standards Board, in November 2021 to deliver a comprehensive global baseline sustainability-related disclosure standards. In particular, their recently published proposals on disclosure standards will require changes in the role accountancy professions play in serving public interest. While significant attention is directed towards sustainability reporting, international investors, regulators, and policymakers are increasingly turning their attention to the important role of assurance in ensuring high-quality reporting. And it is our privilege to have with us today our colleague from IFAC and IAASB to share with us the latest update on the state of play in sustainability assurance. I am confident that all of you will find today's webinar sessions useful and beneficial to your work. Before I hand the floor to Dr. Hendra Tasunuwijaya, I would like to take this opportunity to emphasize IFA's commitment to working closely with our member organizations, partners, and stakeholders to build awareness and capacity of our ASEAN accountancy profession and contribute to the global sustainability efforts. I look forward to welcoming you at our future events and activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry, for your remarks and for highlighting our commitment to working closely with our member organizations, partners, and stakeholders, particularly to build awareness and also capacity of our ASEAN accountancy profession and contribute to the global sustainability efforts. Next, I would like to invite the President of IAPI, Bapak Dr. Hendang Tanusjaya, to deliver his welcoming remarks. Bapak Hendang.
Thank you, Pak Oki. Hi, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Nice to meet you. The Honorable Mr. Henry Tan, the Treasurer of IFA, and the representative of Regulation and Authority from Indonesia, from Pusat Pembinaan Profesi Keuangan, and from OJK, and also from other fellows of our PAO, from IAI, IAMI, dan IAPI. The honorable speakers, Mr. David Madden, Directors Public Policy and Regulation IFAC, Mr. Lin Provost, board member of IAASB and Chair Sustainability Assurance Working Group from IAASB, Ms. Sirivipa Supantanet of the Securities and Exchange Commission Thailand, Ibu Kusuma Ningsi Angga Wijaya of the Institute of Akuntan Publik Indonesia, and Mr. Shinichi Takenada, Head of Climate Change and ESG Assurance of Office Deloitte Touch Tomatsu. Ladies and gentlemen, all participants in this webinar, thank you for inviting IAPI to participate on this joint event, IFA, IAPI, JICPA, for such important topic related to sustainability assurance. I'm delighted and honored to speak at the opening of today's event, the state of play in sustainability assurance. On the 3rd November 2021, IFAC has supported the establishment of the International Sustainability Standard Board, or ISASB, to develop a comprehensive global baseline of sustainability disclosure for investors and capital markets, endorsed by ISCO and implemented around the world. This will lead the way to harmonize global system of consistent, comparable, reliable information. We welcome the ASB initiatives to issue a global baseline for investor-focused sustainability reporting that local jurisdiction can build on it. This will certainly support companies in Indonesia and in the near terms to report on all relevant sustainability topics, not limited to climate only, under consistent global frameworks and focus on how this topic would impact enterprise value. In March 2022, IAPI has issued 2 proposed IFRS sustainability disclosure standards with the goal of having climate and general sustainability-related disclosures to have a better connection between sustainability information and financial information. Therefore, this standard will be definitely relevant for our public accounting profession. IAPI strongly believe that to perform high-quality sustainability assurance and judgment, the sustainability reporting should be prepared using high-quality reporting standards that will achieve greater relevance, consistency, reliability, and comparability in sustainability reporting. For the report to be trusted, we need trusted professionals to produce and to give assurance in this time of what I call new economic growth era after pandemics. Accountants and public accountants are needed more than ever. Our profession will play a very important role to ensure that all economic growth are based on true and sustainable economic development and activities. Our profession will continue taking a proactive role to adopt and implement professional standards and code of ethics, which are aligned with international professional standards and ethics to be regarded as trustworthy profession and to earn public trust. Ladies and gentlemen, with those roles that I've just mentioned, this event has its importance in demonstrating of our collaborative effort to serve public interest and maintain public trust. This event shows that the accounting and public accounting profession must play a key role on the sustainability reporting and its assurance matters, which are important issues for all of us to achieve a better world for our next generation. I'm looking forward for an amazing futures and years of successful and fruitful collaboration. Once again, thank you for the opportunity and wishing everyone a great and amazing rest of 2022. Thank you.
Terima kasih, Bapak Hendang, for your remarks. AFA is certainly committed to continue our excellent cooperation with IAPI, Pak. Terima kasih, Pak.
Thank you, Pak Oki.
And before we continue, I would like to invite Henry, Bapak Hendang, and all of our panelists and guests to turn on your camera. So we will take a quick screenshot on my count of 3, so we can have everyone on screen right now, please. So again, panelists, guests, if you could turn on your camera so we can take a quick screenshot. Okay, let me just count to 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we'll take another one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as alluded to by our treasurer in his remark, sustainability has been of top priority for many stakeholders of the profession. We are responding to growing and urgent demand from global investors, policymakers, and other stakeholders for a reporting system that delivers consistent, comparable, reliable, and assurable sustainability-related information. Some of the jurisdictions in ASEAN have taken this as further encouragement to elevate their efforts to work closer with a wider group of stakeholders. A discussion on sustainability issues, including what we are going to be focusing on today, sustainability assurance, requires massive coordination and cooperation amongst different group of stakeholders, many of whom in the past may never been in the same room to discuss a topic that is of relevance to all. Many of us, I believe, are now looking closely at the IAASB's recently published consultation on the 2 proposed disclosure standards, hopefully with the objective of contributing to the board's deliberation. AFA is looking forward to working closely with the board and facilitate a regional outreach on this soon. For today, we are honored and privileged to welcome 5 distinguished guests. Each represents an important stakeholder of the profession with a common interest in the sustainability space. Each of our panelists will briefly share about the state of sustainability assurance from their and their respective organizations' perspective. Following their presentations, we will have a panel discussion to dive deeper on some of the key points that will be highlighted by our panelists in their presentations. And again, everyone, you are encouraged to submit your question through our Q&A function if you are joining from Zoom, or through the chat function if you are joining from YouTube. And you are welcome to do this throughout the entire webinar. You don't have to wait until the panel discussion or Q&A sessions. We shall try and address your questions during that panel discussions. So without further ado, let us begin with our first panelist, Mr. David Maiden. So David is the Director of Public Policy and Regulation of the International Federation of Accountants, or IFAC, having been joined IFAC since 2019. And among his areas of expertise and responsibilities, of course, sustainability. Prior to IFAC, David represented the IFRS Foundation in the US for nearly a decade, during which he focused on building institutional investor relationships, fundraising, and adoption of IFRS standards by US publicly traded companies. Good evening, David. Thank you for joining us in such a late hour, I know, from the US.
Aki, thank you for that introduction. It's an absolute pleasure. If we can bring up our slides.
Okay, let us wait a bit for the slide to come up.
There we go, all set. Well, hello, everyone. On behalf of IFAC, the International Federation of Accountants, it's an honor and a pleasure for me to kind of kick off, to start our discussion today, about a topic that I'm personally very passionate about and that is absolutely critical to the future of the accountancy profession. As the global voice of the profession, IFAC believes that sustainability information is both challenging and a critical opportunity. And while much of the recent discussion has been focused on standard setting and support for the new IASB, going forward, there's really a major role that we must focus on for the accountancy profession in transforming standards and reporting requirements into high quality, consistent, comparable, and assurable information. So if I could have the next slide, please. So this is why we decided last year to work with AICPA CIMA on a joint project to benchmark the degree to which ESG or sustainability information was being reported by companies in fiscal 2019, and then to look at the extent to which assurance was being provided. Who's providing the assurance, what level of assurance, what standards are being followed. So we gathered a lot of data, and I'll try to share some of the highlights today that explain the state of play in sustainability assurance. Next slide, please. So here's the executive summary. We examined reporting by 1,400 companies from the G20 countries, plus Singapore and Hong Kong. We discovered a lot of ESG reporting. 91% of companies are reporting some ESG information. However, only half, 51%, of this is being assured. Most assurance, 83%, is limited, not reasonable in nature. Audit firms are doing majority of these engagements, 63%, but that means a third of the engagements are being done outside of the accountancy profession. When accounting firms are engaged, they are using IAASB assurance standards. But finally, we found big differences in the results between countries. Next slide, please. So to better understand assurance, we think we first need to look at the who, what, and how of reporting sustainability information. Of the 1,400 companies, 1,269, 91% reported some ESG information, even if it was only one greenhouse gas metric. Most companies, 57%, provided that information in a separate corporate sustainability report, 18% used annual reports, and 16% used integrated reports. Next slide. At the jurisdiction-specific level, we can see a mix of reporting models being used. France is unique. All the ESG reporters disclose the information directly in the annual report in the MD&A, and this is regulatory requirement in France. South Africa, not surprisingly, has the largest proportion of integrated reports, but we did note significant amounts of integrated reports in Brazil, Spain, Japan, and South Korea. And finally, the US and Canadian companies overwhelmingly disclose their information in standalone sustainability reports. Next slide, please. We also wanted to understand what standards or frameworks are being used by companies in reporting the information. GRI and the UN Sustainable Development Goals are clearly the most common, but almost 70% reported using multiple frameworks and standards. And from IFAC's perspective, this is a barrier to consistent, comparable, and reliable information when companies are using multiple standards and doing it predominantly on a voluntary basis. This is important because consistent reporting is the best foundation for high-quality assurance. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, our state of play data is based on the 2019 reporting cycle. This was the most complete data set available to us in the first quarter of last year when we conducted our research. But obviously, ESG reporting and assurance is a dynamic situation, so we are updating our research to look at fiscal 2020 and 2021 reporting. So here's a very unofficial sneak preview at some of the 2020 fiscal year results. In terms of reporting frameworks, GRI and the SDGs are still most common, 72% and 76% respectively. But there's been a significant uptick in the reference of SASB standards from just 15% in 2019 to 38% in 2020. That's a 2.5 times increase. And a similar increase in references to the TCFD framework, which doubled from 24% in 2019 to 48% in 2020. Unfortunately, we're now up to 80% of companies that are reporting using multiple frameworks. When we look at where companies are reporting on ESG, we see an increase in the use of annual reports and integrated reports with somewhat less reliance on separate corporate sustainability reports. Most notably, integrated reports increased from 16% to 21% between 2019 and 2020, and that included increases in India and Japan. Next slide, please. Okay, now for assurance. So first, a quick comment on methodology. What counts as assurance? We considered a company to have obtained sustainability assurance if any of the sustainability information was assured. Of course, many companies, perhaps most, included in the study, did not receive assurance over all the information, but only a portion of it. So now look at some of the data. Next slide, please. The global average is 51%. 51% of companies that report sustainability information get some of that information assured. But the rate of assurance varies significantly between jurisdictions, as you can see by the blue bars on the graphic. The highest rates of assurance are in France and South Korea. We also see relatively high levels of assurance in the United States, Europe, Australia, and South Africa. But aside from these jurisdictions, the levels of assurance begin to drop off. In fact, if you exclude the 4 EU countries in our survey, where assurance levels are among the highest in France, Spain, Italy, and Germany, the level of companies providing assurance drops from 51% to 44%. But again, this is 2019 data. The situation has been changing rapidly. So let's look again at some of the preliminary results as we're updating the state of play for 2020. So next slide, please. So it looks like we've seen a 7% increase from 51 to 58% in the rate of assurance being provided by companies. This is almost entirely from existing ESG reporting companies that are providing assurance for the first time. The largest increases we found were in Brazil, Canada, Italy, the UK, and Australia. Some new data that we are capturing in 2020 tells us what type of ESG information is being assured. So the bar charts at the right indicate that the greenhouse gases or other environmental factors, is receiving the most attention, the most focus in insurance engagements. So let's go back to the original data from 2019 on the next slide, please. So here we're looking at who is providing the assurance. We show three types of practitioners: audit firms, audit affiliated firms, and other service providers or consultants. At the global level, almost 2/3 of sustainability assurance engagements are being done by the profession. So that's good news. But it's important to recognize that other service providers are doing 1/3. And this varies significantly from country to country. So for example, in France, audit firms have close to 100% market share. In South Korea, where there is a very high level of assurance, the market is dominated by other service providers. And we also see a prevalence of consultants doing work in the United States. So there's an important message for our profession. Sustainable assurance is a major opportunity, but there is significant competition out there. Next slide, please. So another important question is obviously what type of assurance is being provided. So as you can see, the most common type is limited assurance. 83% of sustainability assurance engagements result in limited opinions. Looking closely at the slide, you'll see considerable levels of moderate assurance, those are the gray bars, particularly in some Asia-Pacific jurisdictions. So as we all know, under IAASB standards, there are two types of assurance, limited and reasonable. So what's going on here? On the next slide, please. When the profession, meaning audit firms, the blue bars, or affiliated firms, audit affiliated firms, those are the red bars, when they're providing assurance, they're using IAASB standards or national equivalents. And these are resulting in limited and reasonable opinions. So while other service providers may also use ISAE 3000 revised and provide limited or reasonable assurance, not all of other service providers do. There are standard organizations such as International Standard Organization, ISO, and accountability that are frequently used by other service providers. And that's where we see the incidence of moderate assurance opinions. For those of you who may want to delve more into this topic and maybe even look at some data suggesting where there could be some potential misuse of ISAE 3000, I encourage you to look, I encourage everyone to Google IFAC State of Play, and you will find a 50-page report, not of text, but all the graphics and diagrams that I presented, as well as many more. So if I could have the next slide, once we published all this data, we conducted extensive outreach, roundtables, webinars, panels, meetings, etc., to try to understand some of these jurisdictional differences. And last December, we published IFACT's vision for high quality assurance of sustainability information. Next slide, please. So our vision is based on emerging best practices that we observed in the market, and it's predicated on high quality global standards. So first, as regulation evolves, we believe that we need regulators to require reporting and assurance of decision useful information. We need reporting scope to cover how sustainability factors create risks and opportunities, how it factors into company strategy and business model, and potentially impact performance. And yes, we need key KPIs or key performance indicators too to measure progress. For this to happen, information silos that might exist within companies need to be broken down or bridged. And there needs to be a focus on the integrity of the data, so systems and internal controls will be important. Better alignment in terms of the timeliness of reporting is important. We see this in the IAASB's 2 exposure drafts, which are requiring sustainability information to be published at the same time as financial information. And most importantly is connecting assurance and sustainability information with financial statement audit engagements. We believe that this approach combines the skills and competencies of professional accountants and their overall knowledge of a company, its performance, with assurance and sustainability information. We think this maximizes value to companies and to their stakeholders. And as a profession, we must advocate for smart regulation that allows the statutory auditor to also conduct the sustainability assurance work. All this rests on a foundation of high quality global standards for reporting and assurance. My colleague Lynn Provost from the IAASB will explain to us the work that the IAASB is doing now to ensure assurance providers have the best tools possible to conduct sustainability engagements. Finally, regulatory supervision and enforcement over assurance must ensure uniform application of the standards that are being used by service providers. All assurance providers who use ISA 3000 must comply with all of the standards requirements. As one of my colleagues likes to say, if the opinion doesn't say in accordance with, then it's not in accordance with ISA 3000. Providers should be regulated. They should have a code of ethics at least as rigorous as the IASB code for professional accountants. But assurance is not the only area where professional accountants must play a key role with respect to sustainability information. So if I can have the next slide, please. I'd like to talk briefly about a call to action that IFAC published at the end of February. We tried to spell out our role as enablers who can assist in the transition towards more sustainable companies and markets through high quality decision useful information. So it starts with the support of the IASB to develop this comprehensive global baseline disclosure requirements that meet the needs of investors in global capital markets. But it also requires that we speak up and leverage the fact that professional accountants are at the center of information flows and decision-making, and our skills and competencies are unique in the ability to connect financial and non-financial information. Next slide, please. Our call to action also highlights quickly, 4 things that we think as professional accountants we can do in our day-to-day work. We can be proactive if we're in audit profession in reporting on the effects of climate change that's in the financial statements. We can, as individuals, try to break down ESG versus financial information silos within companies. At IFAC, we're referring to this as adopting an integrated mindset. We need to integrate ESG subject matter into our existing personal foundational skills and competencies, our judgment and our integrity as professional accountants. And where we can, where we have access, we need to advocate for smart policymaking locally. So at IFAC, we encourage everyone, we believe this is what the accountants profession can and must do. So I'd like to conclude my remarks by noting some of IFAC's ongoing policy and advocacy projects related to sustainability, and there are several of them listed on this slide. So just to highlight a couple, our ongoing collaboration right now with member bodies in Indonesia around the Indonesian B20 presidency. We have an upcoming IFAC thought leadership publication on championing an integrated mindset. We have launched a new benchmarking study examining emission or net zero targets and transition plans that companies are providing in their corporate disclosures. And last but not least, we hope to engage throughout 2022 and listen to what our member bodies are doing and what their experiences are in the region and how IFAC can help. So on the listening note that I just mentioned, I look forward to listening to my fellow presenters and I look forward to answer your questions. Again, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, David, for setting the context for our sharing and discussion today. IFAC's vision for high quality assurance of sustainability information is something that indeed the profession needs to support as part of our response to stakeholders' demand for disclosure of reliable sustainability related information. And as addressed by this vision, global standard for assurance is an important part of this. So to discuss more about that, as David has alluded to in his presentation, let us hear from a representative of the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board, IAASB, Ms. Lynn Provost. Lynn is a board member of the IAASB and chair of its Sustainability Working Group. Lynn was previously Controller and Auditor General of New Zealand, and prior to that, she was Deputy Commissioner of Police. Lynn is a life member of Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand, holds an honorary doctorate from Victoria University of Wellington, and is a companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit. Good afternoon, Lynn. Welcome to our webinar.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation and I am looking forward to this session, like David, not just presenting, but also listening to your questions and concerns. So thank you very much for the invitation. Could we have my slides up, please? Thank you. This afternoon in my time, I'm going to talk about how we build confidence in sustainability information that is increasingly being reported. Next slide, please. Just 1 second. Sorry, my screen's frozen, so I'll just be 1 second. You have to love technology. As we've already heard from the previous 3 speakers, there's a lot happening in this area of sustainability reporting. Some of the themes we have particularly seen is a shift from voluntary reporting, where people did it because they felt it was important, to mandatory reporting. And that means that major jurisdictions are stepping up or introducing new requirements to report on such information. And with that mandatory reporting is coming a move towards more mandatory assurance as well. And we've seen regulators in the EU and in the US proposing that the initial assurance should be limited, with a move over time to reasonable assurance. Often that date is undefined. So just picking up some of the highlights of what David said and briefly introducing them here. Next slide, please. As you probably know, the IAASB already has standards and guidance in this area that can be used for sustainability and ESG report engagements. We have ISAE 3000 that David has just talked about. We have the sustainability and EER guidance that was published last year. And we also have the examples that were prepared as a part of that guidance. Now, obviously, we're not the only standard setter, and there are other standards, such as the ISO standards and the AA 1000 standards. And that leads me to a particular risk that proliferation of standards potentially gives us, and that is a risk of fragmentation. We've obviously had the risk of fragmentation in the reporting standards. There are, when we were doing the sustainability guidance, over 100 frameworks. They are starting to consolidate, but as there is the risk of fragmentation in that reporting, there is also a risk of fragmentation in the assurance space. And that can lead to confusion for users who may not realise the difference between the types of assurance that are provided. So as at the IAASB, we have recognised the risk of fragmentation and the impact that that could have. And in particular, our interest is in making sure that we have consistency in the quality of assurance globally. So despite the fact that we have the standards and guidelines in place, guidance in place already, we think there is more to do. And people are saying that there is a need for more than just guidance. People are looking for authoritative standards in this area. So the IAASB is actively working to reduce the risk of fragmentation. We're very engaged with key stakeholders. For example, the European Commission, IOSCO, IFAC, to name a few. And we have clarified, clearly indicated our commitment to take action in this space. And in that regard, I am chairing the working group that is looking to very quickly progress what action we take. And we are doing that work at pace. Next slide, please. Okay, in March 2022, so last month, the IAASB board meeting strongly supported the need for standard setting in this area and clear recognition of the need for a branded standard that refers to assurance on sustainability. We know we can't develop a full suite of comprehensive sustainability standards right away. The ISAs took many years to evolve and develop, but we have heard the need to encompass all the sustainability topics, environmental, social, and governance, all information disclosed about those topics, for example, strategy, controls, risk management, all mechanisms for reporting, including management, integrated reporting and sustainability reporting, and all reporting standards. We've already heard about GRI and IASB, etc. And all of those together are needed to meet multi-stakeholder needs. So if we're going to do, as we are going to do this, it will be a journey. And what we need to do is identify the most important things to do first. And we're thinking about doing the 4 areas on this. We are thinking about the 4 areas on this slide. Firstly, what's the architecture of the standards? How does it fit with the ISAs and the ISAEs? We're looking at having a complete assurance solution, not a bits one. So we're looking at this as a holistic solution. We are also looking to start with what we have, and I have already run through some of those, and most of the others will be familiar to you. And we are finally looking to provide a phased approach based on the challenges that are causing people the most concerns at this point in time. So we are actively looking at what the challenges are for the profession and for practitioners and auditors at this point in time. Next slide, please. So you might be wondering what we've heard in terms of those priority challenges. And it's something we're still exploring, but this is where we're at this stage. The first challenge we hear is regarding limited versus reasonable assurance, and that there's a lack of clarity on the sufficiency of evidence required to achieve each level of confidence. There is some material in the appendix to the Sustainability EER guidance, but people are still looking for more. The second issue we're hearing is about suitable reporting criteria, which, as you know, is the responsibility of preparers. But the question is, they're often not doing it to an appropriate standard. So what should the assurer do in such cases? The third challenge we're hearing about is the scope of the engagement. Are people producing a full sustainability report, Or do they just want assurance on particular measures or particular parts of the report? And how do we deal with the implications of that scope? Fourthly, we're hearing questions around evidence. What constitutes evidence? What is enough evidence? How do you know that the information you've got is complete? How do we address circumstances where we can't obtain sufficient appropriate evidence? For example, the internal control system or recording systems as a part of that are incomplete. Finally, we're hearing about materiality. Should we actively be promoting double materiality as a concept, given the nature of the material we're dealing with is often narrative and qualitative? How do we deal with variances in reporting in terms of material transactions? And how do we assess materiality as a whole when the information is so different in terms of its nature? One can't add up narrative, qualitative information and numbers. So how do we actually deal with materiality? So that's what we're hearing at this stage. If anyone wants to come on the chat and add to that, or agree or disagree with them, we'd be very happy to hear, because we're in that important stage of deciding what's most important for us to deal with. Next slide, please. So thinking about where we are now, at the moment, the staff and the IAASB Sustainability Working Group have ideas about where we might go, but these haven't been formally discussed and agreed with the IAASB board yet. So while we need to continue to think about our actions, we also need to go back to the June IAASB board with our concrete suggestions and proposals about what actions we think should be done and how we will deliver on that. And following that, we need to progress, obviously, those agreed actions. Throughout the process, we need to continue to have ongoing outreach. We have regular touch points with key stakeholders who have a particular interest in this topic. And we are also considering when would be a good time for us to do more comprehensive outreach. And at this point in time, we're thinking later in the year rather than earlier. So with that, thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate that and look forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn, for providing an overview of the board's actions on this space and highlighting particularly the priority challenges that the board is hearing from your stakeholders. And further to our support to the board's outreach on the proposed standard for audit of less complex entities last year, AFA is looking forward to work with the IAASB on any further outreach in the ASEAN jurisdiction, including any potential standards for sustainability assurance. So thank you for that, Lynn. Okay, next, let us look into some jurisdictional examples of how professional accountancy organizations, or PAOs, are working with their stakeholders to build awareness towards sustainability assurance and some of their initiatives to support their members in this space. First, we will look into Indonesia. So represented by the Indonesian Institute of Certified Public Accountants, or IAPI, Ibu Kusumaningsih Angkawijaya is one of the chairpersons of IAPI. She is also a member of the Institute's Extended External Reporting Task Force. Ibu Ningsih is a partner of KAP Siddhartha Wijaya dan Rekan, a member firm of KPMG International. Among her current and past responsibilities include supervision of the Indonesian Auditing and Assurance Standards Board and a member of the IAASB's International Reference Group for the proposed standard on audit of less complex entities. Selamat pagi, Ibu Ningsih. Good to have you on board, Ibu. The next 15 minutes are yours.
Selamat pagi, Pak Oki. Yeah, good morning, Pak Oki. Thank you very much for a nice introduction about me. Can I have someone to bring up my slide, please? Okay. So very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. My pleasure to be with all of you. Basically, yeah, I'm very delighted to share with you today on what IAPI has been doing or what IAPI will do in order to prepare our public accounting professions future ready for this exciting opportunity for sustainability assurance. So next slide, please. So I think we can skip this one, disclaimer. We can go to the next slide. Okay. So sustainability or ESG is very important topic in business nowadays, including in our jurisdiction, Indonesia. Everybody is talking about it. We open the newspaper and always talking some things about ESG, about sustainability. The long COVID pandemic of the past 2 years have clearly brought a new focus on the importance of incorporating sustainability to long-term business strategy. So we start seeing increased demands from stakeholders such as investors, regulators, and customers for increased reporting and transparency on ESG issue. So in response to the future demand for extended external reports and the related assurance engagement, and with the desire to serve the public interest, in December 2020, IAPI formed Integrated Reporting Task Force. And a year later, in December 2021, this task force was renamed to Extended External Reporting Task Force. So as you can see in the screen, there are 9 members led by Pak Hendang Tanusjaya and consists of basically including Pak Hendang, there will be 6 practitioners. And we also have 1 academicians, we have 1 subject matter expertise, and we also have 1 corporate officer. So it's quite diverse. The objective of this task force is, of course, to develop technical and practical guidance to support the practitioners in Indonesia in providing assurance service related to EER using the standard that we already have, which is ISAE 3000, or in Indonesia, we call it SPA 3000, adopted from ISAE 3000. Or ISAE 34110, which we are going to adopt in the near future. And secondly, I think this is the most important thing, is to create awareness on the sustainability assurance on EER through collaborations with key stakeholders in sustainability ecosystem, including the webinar like what we do today. So maybe we can go to the next slide, please. So in Indonesia, the importance of sustainability is acknowledged through the regulations set forth by the Indonesia Financial Service Authority, or we call it OJK, in 2017, related to the applications of sustainable finance. We call it OJK Rule 51. So under this rule, financial services institutions, issuer companies, and also public companies are obliged to submit and publish their first sustainability report starting April 2020. Although OJK Rule 51 does not currently mandate sustainability report to be subjected to assurance, the regulation stated that if it is verified, then it should be done by independent party. As business leaders expect to rely increasingly on external assurance on ESG data, we noted that there are some benefits of seeking sustainability assurance services. So what we are trying to say in here is, although the assurance is not mandatory right now, but considering having sustainability assurance will be a good thing to be considered. So why? I would like to share several benefits. First, it will ensure credibility, reliability, and accuracy of non-financial disclosure in the annual report or in the sustainability report or integrated reports. Because in Indonesia right now, it's still varied. Yeah. Some of them, they put the ESG information in annual report, some of them in sustainability report, and some of them in the integrated report. And secondly, it will strengthen internal awareness within the corporate on material sustainability risks and opportunities. And the next one, it will drive the organization to enhance system, process, and internal controls around the collections and reporting ESG data. Because in order to have a robust sustainability insurance, I think it's very important to have a robust system, process, and internal control. So the earlier the organization are ready with it, the better they are in preparing for the sustainability reporting and assurance in the near future. And the next one is allow the organization to prepare for the mandatory ESG assurance coming into effect in the near future. We don't know when, but I think in the near future, the time will come. That maybe at one point of time, there will be a mandatory assurance on ESG informations. And the next one is allow the organizations to benchmark their disclosure to best practice and enhance the overall quality of their sustainability disclosures. So these are just some benefits that I think is very useful for the organizations to be aware of. So maybe we can move to the next one, slide 5, please. So this one, actually, we did a very simple research. So the research is not like the one that performed by IFAC, like David just shared. It's very simple, in which recently IAPI performed a limited research on 50 largest listed entity by market capitalization as of 31st March 2022, so this year. The research revealed 33 out of 50 entities have issued sustainability reports in 2021. 13 of 33 entities have assurance statement in which 54% use ISAE 3000 limited assurance and 46% use AA 1000 AS moderate level. 12 entities had assurance performed by non-audit firm. What we mean by non-audit firm in here, including actually audit affiliated firm. And one entity had assurance performed by audit firm using SPA 3000. What we mean by audit firm in here is the audit firm who have license by Ministry of Finance and able to provide auditing and assurance services. So we only have one out of 13 at this moment, based on our research, who have issued sustainability assurance using SPA 3000. So this result is still consistent actually with the benchmarking conducted by IFAC, with what David just shared in his presentations, which they also doing the benchmarking of 50 listed Indonesian companies based on market capitalization as of last year, as of 31st March 2021. But the result, I think, is pretty much actually aligned. So this result tells us that ISAE 3000, which is the international assurance standard and also our local standard equivalent to SPA 3000 adopted from ISAE 3000, have not been widely used in performing assurance on sustainability reporting in our jurisdiction. Therefore, there's an urgent need for high quality international standard on assurance on sustainability that we need to adopt in order to ensure consistency, credibility, reliability, and accuracy of data disclosed in sustainability reports. So maybe we can go to the next slide. So this is the strategic initiative of IAPI, which is to develop standards and guidance for assurance on EER through the adoption of standard and guidance issued by IAASB. So we start with what we locally have right now. Excuse me for a while. Sorry, I have to drink a little bit. So we started with what we locally have right now, which is SPA 3000, adopted from ISAE 3000. And because we have not adopted the revised one, so we are currently in the process of revising SPA 3000 to be in line with ISAE 3000 revised. And right now we are already at the final stage actually, of adopting the non-authoritative guidance on applying ISAE 3000 revised to EER assurance engagement as issued by IASB in April 21 and then renamed in December 21. So we are also in the process right now. Our standard status is in the process of adopting ISAE 34110 with its assurance engagement on greenhouse gas statements. We believe this standard will be a relevant standard for addressing a growing demand from stakeholders for trusted carbon emissions informations. This is certainly in line with our government's target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 29% by 2030 with our own efforts, or 41% with international support, and then to achieve net zero emissions by 26, or if possible, earlier. So this is just to give you a landscape of our current development about the standards and guidance. And then we can move to the next one, which is to give you a picture a little bit, about the next one, please. So as I mentioned earlier, that IAPI is currently in the process of adopting the non-authoritative guidance on EER assurance engagement under ISAE 3000. So when you see the diagram, this is actually the diagram that we took it from the non-authoritative guidance, but we feel that diagram is very useful to share with the audience today about this. So this is the non-authoritative guidance. So from what we understand from reading this non-authoritative guidance, the use of this guidance in performing EER assurance engagement is optional. That's why it's non-authoritative guidance. And further, the guidance does not introduce any further requirements beyond those in ISAE 3000. And the most important thing, whoever is going to use this guidance, they have to understand the standard. Because the one actually that become the authoritative one is actually the ISAE 3000. This is simply just the guidance to help the practitioner. So if you can see in this one, the guidance is structured in 12 chapters that relate to specific states and other aspects of an EER assurance engagement performed in accordance with ISAE 3000. What good about this actually diagram is, first, if we are familiar with ISAE 3000, so we can see that the green bands, row and column, this is the heading to show the description and paragraph number in ISAE 3000. Then they will map it with the orange one. The diagram the diagram will associate it. So for each paragraph in ISAE 3000, there will be a corresponding link to the chapter in the non-authoritative guidance. And what actually we would like to highlight today, because a very limited time, we would like to focus on today actually on the two chapter in this guidance, which is applying appropriate competence and capabilities and exercise professional skepticism and solicitous judgment. Why we would like to focus in here? Because if you can see in this diagram, actually applying appropriate competence and capability and exercising professional skepticism and professional judgment will happen actually throughout the process of EER engagement. That's why you can see this is actually the long band, the long green band for across all the chapters. So maybe we can move to the next slide. So the first two chapters of the guidance, as I alluded earlier, is applying appropriate competence and capabilities and exercising professional skepticism and professional judgment. Let me start with the competence and capabilities, because I think this is something that very, very interesting to many of you, especially if you are the practitioner, if you are the auditors. The competence needed to perform EER assurance engagement actually include both assurance competence. So this is competence in assurance skills and techniques. This is something that practitioners or auditor may have it already, and I'm sure already have it. And the second one is subject matter competence, competence in the underlying subject matter of the engagement. So maybe these competence are usually right now is being owned by practitioner experts. Maybe for the auditors or the practitioner, maybe they are not in there yet. So that's why in sustainability assurance, multidisciplinary team is very important, yeah, in order to perform, yeah, this engagement. So if we can see the standard, what is the assurance skill that are mentioned in this ISAE 3000, and then you can actually relate these skills with the skills that we do when we perform the audit. First, application of professional judgment and professional skepticism. Secondly, planning and performing assurance engagement, including obtaining and evaluating evidence. And third, understanding information system and the role and limitation of internal control. And the next one, linking the consideration of materiality and engagement rates to the nature, timing, and extent of procedures, and applying procedure as appropriate to the engagement. And the procedure is, some of them is quite similar with what we do in the audit, inquiry, inspection, recalculations, reperformance, observation, confirmation, analytical procedures. So basically, same thing. We try to obtain the evidence, whether this an audit evidence, when we perform the audit now, is an assurance evidence. And last, yeah, but I think not the least, is the systematic documentation and assurance report writing skills. Yeah. So for professionals who have auditing background, they may already have these assurance skills. However, in performing EER assurance engagement, the engagement team may need some competence in both assurance competence and subject matter competence. Yeah, the degree, maybe they are more in here, they are less in here, but I think they cannot just have assurance and do not have any subject matter competence at all, or the other way. Therefore, it is very common, yeah, for EER assurance engagement to be performed by multidisciplinary team. Yeah. The more complex the engagement, the more crucial, yeah, for the engagement team to consider how the work of practitioner and the work of the expert to be integrated into one, integrated across, yeah, the engagement. And I would like to highlight something which I think is very important. Yeah, when I actually read the non-authoritative guidance, I found it, yeah, that the standard highlights that the engagement partner is to have competence in assurance skill and techniques, as well as sufficient subject matter competence to accept responsibility for the assurance conclusion. And a practitioner may use work of practitioner experts as long as the work of expert is deemed adequate. However, the engagement partner has sole responsibility for the engagement, and the engagement is not reduced by the work of practitioner expert. Yeah, so I think this is very important to be acknowledged. Yeah, the other one, I think about the professional judgment and professional skepticism. Actually, the standard require practitioners to plan and perform an engagement with professional skepticism and can recognize circumstances that may cause subject matter information to be materially misstated. Yeah, so this is require professional judgment and also professional skepticism. When we talk about professional skepticism, it's about the attitude of practitioner. So as such, yeah, professional skepticism in an EER assurance engagement is similar, yeah, to practitioner skepticism in other assurance, including audit. Yeah, although the need of exercise professional skepticism in EER may be elevated, yeah, compared to the other assurance. Yeah. And the other one, I think also the standard also require practitioner to exercise professional judgment in planning and performing assurance engagement, including determining the nature, timing, and extent of procedures. So I think we can move to the next slide. Yeah, this next slide is also, we got it from the non-authoritative guidance. I think it's quite useful, yeah, because this is diagram illustrate some possible factors or impediment affecting exercise professional skepticism. Actually, it can be caused by internal factors and can also be caused by external factors. Some example of internal factors are insufficient knowledge of the business relevant to underlying subject matters, so lack of knowledge. And the second one is EER, engagement team with diverse skills and specialized knowledge. And there could be personal bias, attitudes, beliefs, and values. This could be an internal factors. There are also examples of external factors. One of the things that they put in here is fee pressures, and also the diverse group of users and diverse EER underlying subject matters. And the other one also numerous possible criteria, acceptable assumption, measurement, and evaluation uncertainty, and also the EER reporting framework, which are currently still refined. But the good news, the EER reporting framework or sustainability reporting framework, right now we already have IASB, and they have just recently issued 2 proposals. I think the progress is in there. So I think in the past, because of the fragmentations in the EER reporting framework, so this is allowing for different interpretations or applications of the criteria. So we can move to the next page. Again, this also the diagram that we actually take it from the non-authoritative guidance. This is just to give some example, some indicates example of the behavior or skills that may support the exercise of professional skepticism. So maybe I'm not going to go over one by one, but just to highlight, some of the behavior or skill is actually quite similar, when we perform the audit. Critical thinking, and the other one also questioning mind. So we don't take, or we don't accept management explanation at face value, but we always have a questioning mind, being skeptic. And the other one also the assurance skill and experience and etc. I think this one to give us a flavor, example of behavior or skill that support the exercise of professional skepticism when we perform the assurance engagement on sustainability reporting. So we can move to the next one.
Ibu Ningsih, if you could please conclude your presentation.
I think
in the next minute,
this will be about 2 more minutes. I will be done. So the next one is the last 2 slides, I believe. So next slide, please. There are 2 levels of the assurance, limited assurance and reasonable assurance. And based on the statistic that we did on the 50 listed company, many of them right now are still in the limited assurance. Very rare that are already in the reasonable assurance. I don't think we found it yet based on the 50 listed entities. But I think there will be a swift, there will be a movement in the near future, from the limited assurance and reasonable assurance, when the practitioner become more actually confidence, they got more experience and the standard more clear. I think we are quite sure, there will be a movement from the limited assurance to reasonable assurance. So then maybe we can move to the next slide, which is the last slide. So this slide just to give a picture about the standard that we are going to issue within this year or next year for the ISAE 3000 revised and non-authoritative guidance EER. The planning is we are going to issue the exposure draft in September this year, and hopefully after the exposure draft and then the limited hearing and receiving the comment, etc., we aim to be able to finalize these 2 guidance, these standards and guidance, the revised one and guidance in December 2022. So and the other one for the ISAE 3410, we are planning to issue the exposure draft this year in December 2022, but perhaps for the finalizations of the standards will take place in the following year, maybe during the first quarter 2023. So this is the end of my presentation to give all of you a flavor on what IAPI is doing right now in terms of revising the standard and adopting the guidance in order to assist our practitioners to be ready, yeah, for this exciting opportunity. So thank you for listening, and I give back this platform to Pak Oki.
Thank you, Ibu Ningsih, for sharing IAPI's initiative on sustainability, particularly your roadmap for adoption of the IAASB standards and guidance in Indonesia. And good to see some consistency findings from your study with the IFAC as well. And I think one thing is clear from your presentation is that accountants with our sense of integrity, objectivity, professional competence, and due care, and also professional skepticism are well equipped to respond to the demand for assurance to sustainability-related information. And I can see there's already a question on this, which hopefully we can discuss further during the panel discussion later.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Oki.
So next, let us shift our view to Japan and hear from our colleague who is representing the Japanese Institute of Certified Public Accountants, or JICPA. So Mr. Shinichi Takenaka is the head of Climate Change and ESG Assurance Office of Deloitte Touche Tohmatsu LLC, having joined the firm in 1999. He is the leader of the Global Inbound Group, a strategy management team for foreign companies in the Deloitte Touche Tohmatsu Group. Now, following an extensive journey of practicing in Australia and the UK, from 2020, Takenaka-san is serving as the head of the Climate Change and ESG Assurance Office, leading the firm's climate change and ESG services, focusing on institutional disclosure aspects. Welcome, Takenaka-san.
Thank you very much, Oki. It's a nice introduction. Do I still have a 15 minutes to go through?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Please take your time.
All right. Good afternoon to all. I'm Shinichi Takenaka. I'm pleased to be given an opportunity to present today. I'd like to explain an overview of the state of the sustainability assurance in Japan first, then JICPA's initiatives on sustainability assurance in my second half presentation. Okay, moving on to the next slide. That's covered by Oki. Please moving on the next slide. Okay, the first subject is the state of sustainability assurance in Japan. Moving on the next slide. I'd like to start from sustainability reporting development in Japan with comparison to other countries. Japan's Financial Service Agency is currently looking into the mandatory disclosure of sustainability information in the annual securities report. Sustainability Standard Board of Japan, SSBJ, will be established in July 2022 as a counterpart to IASB to provide its opinion to IASB and to develop Japanese standards in line with IASB standards. You may know the introduction of third-party assurance requirements recently announced in the United States, SEC proposed, and also the EU proposed CSRD. In Japan, there are also expectations for mandating the regulatory corporate disclosure and introducing the assurance requirements for regulatory sustainability reporting. Next page. The next topic is the characteristics of the Japanese market researched by IFAC, which is covered by David earlier. Most Japanese companies disclose sustainability information in their voluntary integrated report or sustainability report, while only a few disclose such information in the annual securities report. The content of the annual securities report are determined by law and regulations. However, the current law and regulation do not consider sustainability information disclosure. This is a part of the reason why the annual security report isn't chosen to disclose sustainability information. Next page, please. Of all sustainability information disclosed, only 47% received assurance on the disclosure by third party. This percentage was much lower than those in major Western countries, for example, 71% in the United States. In terms of the level of assurance provided, almost 90% of third-party assurance was on a limited basis, and the situation was similar to major Western countries. Next page, please. This slide covers who provides sustainability assurance. In Japan, services are mainly provided by audit firms and their affiliates, and they account for more than 60% of all service provided. At the same time, you can see from the right-hand bar chart that ISA 3000 and those ISA 3410 are mainly used for assurance standards. Next page, please. We can, we can draw 4 indications from the IFAC survey of Japan, and they are: first, annual securities report is scarcely used as a medium for the disclosing ESG information in Japan. Second, ISA 3000 and ISA 3410 are mainly used as standards for third-party assurance engagement on sustainability information. Third, in Japan, assurance services are mostly provided by subsidiaries of the audit firms, no matter if those services are supposed to be provided in accordance with ISA 3000 developed by IAASB. Fourth, 90% of the assurance provided is limited assurance. Okay, moving on to the next slide. I would like to also look at the result by JICPA's independent survey. There are many forms of sustainability report in the scope of assurance. Overall, there was no particular difference in assurance providers between different reporting media in which assured information is disclosed. However, regarding the reporting of the GHG emissions, all the assurance providers are ISO accreditation bodies, which is very interesting. Also, as shown as green and orange on the right-hand side pie chart, environmental indicators account for a large portion of the scope of assurance services. Moving on, next slide. This is the last slide of the my first part. There is a growing need for sustainability disclosure information and stakeholders' needs for its assurance. There are, however, 3 hurdles to overcome. The first hurdle is ensure the reliability of sustainability information, as you can see at the top of the circle. Companies have to develop their own systems to ensure the reliability of the non-financial information to be disclosed. That is to say, a system that facilitates interaction between disclosure and corporate governance, as well as integrate internal management system. Second is the connectivity between financial and sustainability information. Companies are required to consider the way of the disclosing non-financial information, which include future financial information, and also is relevant to accounting estimates. IFRS Foundation is also looking into the connectivity between IASB and IAASB. Third hurdle is to consolidate various forms of existing disclosure media. In addition to converging and developing new disclosure standards, it may be difficult for stakeholders to understand the connectivity between financial and non-financial information when companies use more than 1 or 2 forms of the disclosure media. So the consolidation will be the key. Finally, it is essential to proceed with the preparation and the response in anticipation with the development of the regulatory authorities and disclosure standard setting bodies, as well as their future progress. Moving on to the next slide. The next topic I'd like to talk about is JICPA's initiatives on sustainability assurance. Next, please. Recognizing a growing importance of non-financial information disclosure, JICPA held discussion with a wide range of experts and published a discussion paper on issues and the solution toward reliable, high-quality corporate disclosure driven by CPA and external auditors. As shown to the right, there are 4 main topics addressed in the report. Today, out of these 4 topics, I'd like to focus on topic 4, audit and assurance for enhancing trust in corporate disclosure. Next slide, please. First, we should enhance quality of corporate disclosure. The role of the external auditor is questioned for the quality of corporate disclosure as a whole. As more companies disclose financial and non-financial information in an integrated manner, for possible solutions, we assume external auditors should acquire the knowledge of an entity's sustainable value creation to assess whether disclosure as a whole represents corporate value. Next slide, please. Next, we should strengthen the communication and cooperation between external auditors and those charged with governance. Given the growing importance of the board of directors as a management supervisory function, and the role of the external auditor is in narrative reporting, we propose the following. External auditors should deepen the communication with the board members, especially with independent directors as those charged with governance. Tripartite cooperation involving the board of corporate auditors should be promoted for improving the effectiveness of audit. Next slide, please. Next, reliability of the non-financial information. In Japan, in case non-financial information is to be assured, only some of the information disclosed in an integrated report and other voluntary reports are subject to the assurance. These documents are not part of the annual securities report, which is the current scope of financial statement audit. We may face potential issues such as the scope of assurance and feasibility of assurance, which should be ensured by preparation standards. Also, professional bodies providing assurance and the interaction with financial statement audit. So it is desirable that assurance for both financial and non-financial information is undertaken in the same annual report, assuming the comprehensive use of the information by investors. Next slide, please. Lastly, enlightenment and capacity building of professional accountants. Now, we need to re-identify the expertise required for professional accountants, taking into account the recent changes in the environment of corporate disclosure. Professional accountants need to enhance their capabilities. Also, we need to review the existing education system and develop the new policy on their expertise from the medium to long-term perspective. The subjects above are under discussion by the JICPA Sustainability Education Study Project team. Next slide, please. CPAs are required to have a general knowledge, not only corporate finance, but also the corporate management issues, including sustainability. Against such a backdrop, JICPA has established the Sustainability Education Study Project team in January 2022. The project team is currently looking into the development of the syllabus for sustainability education for CPAs and working to hold webinars on the disclosure of climate change information and how to ensure the reliability of such information. Okay, next slide, please. Another initiative we are working on is the development of the practical guidance on assurance engagements for green bonds. As you know, the green bond principle issued by the International Capital Market Association recommends green bond issuers receive a pre and post issuance reviews by an outside party. In Japan, such assurance services are also required and should be provided by CPAs in accordance with the ISA 3000 or other equivalent level of guidance. Therefore, as a part of the quality assurance, we are looking into the development of the practical guidance on such assurance engagements. Okay, moving on to the next slide. To meet the expectation of sustainability in an accountant industry, JICPA will serve as a hub by providing syllabus, partnering with the relevant stakeholders, and promoting such activities. Next might be my last slide. The last slide shows some other examples of the initiatives undertaken by JICPA regarding the non-financial or sustainability-related information. As you can see, JICPA is working on various initiatives and will be contributing to the development of the practice for sustainability assurance. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening, and we're looking forward to hearing your questions and comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Takenaka-san, for sharing your insights into the state of sustainability assurance in Japan. And it's also encouraging to see how JICPA is looking into the education part of our discussion, particularly with the establishment of your sustainability education study project team. I think I agree that soon we need to move from building awareness to educating our accountants and stakeholders on sustainability, including its assurance. So thank you for that, Takanaka-san. Last but not least, we are honored to welcome Ms. Sirivipa Supantane, Deputy Secretary General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC Thailand, having been appointed in her role since February 2019. She has an extensive and diverse experience within the SEC, beginning in 1992 in her role as a Senior Assistant Director at the Broker-Dealer Supervision Department, then later in 2007 as the Director of the Market Supervision Department. Her experience with the SEC continues in her role in overseeing the Corporate Governance Department, the Corporate Finance Equity Product Department, and the Corporate Finance Equity and Infrastructure Department between 2011 to 2016. Kon Sirivipa is a strong advocate for SME fundraising and sustainable finance policy. Welcome, Kon Sirivipa. We look forward to hearing your perspective as a representative of the regulator in this panel.
Good morning for your very nice introduction. And good morning, everybody, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for the invitation of the SEC Thailand to be one of the speakers today. COVID-19 pandemic has reinforced the importance of ESG issues and accelerated the transition to a more inclusive capital market. Although many organizations are still in a survival mode, ESG issues are here to stay because they are essential and conducive to the building of resilient and long-term recovery. I would like to take this opportunity to reaffirm that SEC as a state agency is always dedicated to our duty to supervise and develop the Thai capital market to ensure efficiency, fairness, transparency, and integrity. Over the years, SEC has advanced toward a sustainable capital market that provides a mechanism for listed companies to embed ESG factors not only into their business operation, but also value chains. This is in line with the SEC vision to invest, change, and develop a sustainable capital market and economy for the benefit of all stakeholders. We also build and develop a sustainable ecosystem for the Thai capital market, inconsistent with international standards, national policies, and guidelines. These include the UN SDG, the IOSCO, the ACMF, the COP26, the UNGP guidance, and also our 20 years national strategy, which are the Bio-Circular Green Economy, what we call BCG, as well as the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights, which we call NAP on that. Furthermore, supporting the Paris Agreement with the goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius is aligned with our government increasing efforts to combat climate change. SEC is the first Thai government agency to have become an official supporter of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, or TCFD, since December 2020. We also support the transition to BCG and encourage business sector to align their business strategy and policy with Thailand's target announced by the Prime Minister at the World Leaders Summit during COP26 to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and net zero by 2065. Regarding global trends, the Global Risks Report 2022 from the World Economic Forum shows that the global risks are increasingly sustainability related, such as climate action failure and extreme weather events. Given such situation, investor, corporate boards, and government leaders are increasingly raising expectations for progress on ESG issues as well. In addition, companies have improved performance by considering and integrating ESG factors into their business operation. They have also received increased interest from both domestic and international investors, which can lead to reduction of company financial costs. As shown on the Principle of Responsible Investment website, the collective AUM represented by all around 3,000 PRI signatories increased by 17 over the period from 100 trillion US dollar to over 120 trillion US dollar as of March 2021. The ESG development in the Thai capital market is on an upward trend as more businesses take ESG criteria into serious account, especially top listed companies that have already began to provide comparatively more detail in ESG disclosure. Similarly, more and more listed companies integrate ESG factors into their business strategy and practices. To date, 146 listed companies are enlisted to Thailand Sustainability Investment, and 29 more are included in that index as well. For World Class Index, 74 Thai listed companies are selected to be included in Dow Jones Sustainability Emerging Markets Index, the highest number in ASEAN. In addition, 39 listed companies are members of FTSE for Goods Emerging Index, and 42 more are members of MSCI ESG Universal Index. In developing a sustainable capital market in Thailand, SEC adopts 3 pillars of discipline, namely self-discipline, for example, CG Code, market force, for example, I Code, and regulatory discipline, One Report, to drive initiative for propelling a sustainable finance ecosystem. In this regard, ESG works in close collaboration with all stakeholders to develop the ecosystem. SEC also drives business through supply side, demand side, and intermediary and supporting infrastructure. On the supply side, ESG encourages businesses to integrate ESG into their operation and disclose ESG information efficiently. For the demand side, SEC has introduced investment governance code for institutional investors, what we call I Code, to which 75 institutional investors have already signed a declaration of intent. SEC also promotes platforms for sustainable development and supports the role of analysts and service providers. To further strengthen the disclosure of listed companies, effective this year onwards, SEC requires all listed companies to disclose their sustainability information integrated with business reporting via the new disclosure form called One Report. One Report enhances the quality of ESG disclosure of both issuers and listed companies. In addition, human rights protection and carbon emissions shall to be disclosed in these reports as well. In summary, the 4 main topics of ESG disclosure are as follows. The first one is policy and objectives of sustainable management. Listed company required to describe the organizational sustainability management policy, which is in harmony with the business direction and strategies to reflect the intention and determination to drive forward the business by taking into consideration environmental and social issues, as well as respect for human rights and good corporate governance. The second topic is management of impacts on stakeholders in business value chain. Under this topic, listed company must describe the characteristics of the business value chain and identify the group of key stakeholders, both internal and external, with a relationship with the business value chain. The third one is management of environmental sustainability. Under this one, the listed company must describe the policy and guideline in accordance with the related laws, rules, and regulations in the environmental area, and also describe the operating results related to the environmental management. The last topic is social sustainability management. The listed company has to describe the company policy and guidelines in accordance with the related law, rules and regulations, and also describe the operating result related to social sustainability management, including respect for human rights throughout the value chain. SEC also supports several mechanisms for promoting our one report. SEC also cooperates with other related organizations and provides capacity building programs and seminars on a regular basis, as well as manual and guidance in order to prepare the business sector for adoption of ESG principles. In conducting knowledge sharing sessions for listed companies, especially small and medium-sized ones, we provide knowledge and understanding of ESG concepts through the shared experience of large companies. SEC also grants an annual fee exemption to listed company equal to the GHG's emission verifying fees with a maximum of 50,000 baht per year for the period of 2020 to 2022. For the cooperation in environmental aspect, SEC has been proactively working with the related organizations to enhance the understanding of greenhouse gas emission and adoption of international standards. As an official TCFD supporter, SEC encourages listed companies to further develop their disclosure to be in line with the TCFD recommendations and international standards. On the social aspect side, SEC has cooperated with the Faculty of Law, Chulalongkorn University, on the first topic, business and human rights for business sector in Thai capital market. We also propose guidelines for conducting business with respect of human rights, follow the UNGP, HRDD, NAP, and also the SDGs, and organize several events. That was the first phase. For the second phase this year, we aim to create HRDD awareness and guide them to manage impacts of human rights. To achieve sustainable value creation, we need the preparation of values of every stakeholder in the capital market. From our experience, the tone from the top process is a vital key toward a successful implementation of our policy. The board should exercise leadership roles, oversee the implementation of embedding SEC issues into our business practices, and incorporate them into the corporate strategy. In addition, to fulfill their duty to act in the best interest of the company, directors must take into account human rights, climate change, and environmental consequences of their decision as well. On the another end, SEC has also encouraged investment analysts and fund managers to integrate ESG factors into their investment or advisory process and risk returns models. This will not only urge them to deliver better long-term outcomes to their clients, but also to make a contribution as an important driving force for listed companies to integrate ESG into their sustainability goal. As the sustainable bond market is growing, I would like to give you some number that for the green product that we introduced. Right now, the total issuance value is about 170,000 million baht in 2021. As I mentioned that as the sustainable bond is growing, the law of external assurance is becoming more and more important in creating credentials for the products and preventing greenwashing. It helps to ensure the sustainability bond framework and information shared with investors are reliable, accurate, and unbiased in order to attract global investors and mainstream participations. Although the regulation for green and social and sustainability bond in Thailand do not require an external reviewer so far, every deal has appointed one. As for the brand new product, what we call SLB bond, which link capital to the company's sustainability performance, the rule requires that an external review will be appointed for both pre and post issuance. The assurance of the KPI metrics and performance against the goals are particularly important. as this can affect the coupon adjustment of the bond. As the ESG, KPI, and performance are important parts that show a company commitment to sustainable growth and are disclosed in the company's sustainability report. We believe the assurance of the KPI metrics and performance will form an important basis for the assurance of the non-financial reports and will be expanded to cover the other elements of the reports. I would like to say more that SEC acknowledges the importance of adequate and reliable SEC disclosure. As mentioned earlier this year, one report has become into force, marking the beginning of a significant shift of a company report on ESG. One report will be an important instrument to enhance ESG disclosure in the Thai capital market and a good starting point of the ESG disclosure assurance by requiring verification of information on greenhouse gas emission according to international standard or equivalent. One ESG received one report. For more than 700 listed companies, we will need to assess the report in both quantitative and qualitative angles. For the matter that need improvement, we will cooperate with the related agency to continue develop and also set measures to support accurate and reliable disclosure. Currently, Thai Institute of Directors, or what we call Thai IOD, is developing a new corporate governance practice for Thai listed company assessment, which will begin in 2023 and will be based on our one report disclosure. This will help listed company prepare for new criteria for attaining best practices and encourage the growth of sustainable organization. For the assurance of ESG disclosure, SEC closely monitor and study development and international standards related to sustainability assurance. One, such assurance is settled. We will coordinate with related local authority to ensure that we will have appropriate measures for both companies and accountants in accordance with the Thai context. As we commemorate SEC 30th anniversary this year, SEC continue to invest the principle of SDG, and we will fully aware of the consequences and urgency of climate crisis and human rights issues in our society and the overall economy. Businesses can no longer focus on making profit only, but need to embed ESG issue into their business practices as well as to create long-term performance and valuation. There is no doubt that sustainable elements will become very essential for every sector. I hope that our past actions and experiences will be able to serve as an example and provide a foundation for our future capital with greater contribution to the country's economic growth and social development. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Khun Hasirivipa, for that insightful sharing. I understand that many of regulators in the ASEAN jurisdictions, some of whom are in the audience today, I believe, are currently contemplating on how they could best respond to the growing demand for high-quality sustainability information. So thank you for sharing how the SEC Thailand is issuing these different best practices, disclosure rules, manuals to support the ESG Thailand capital market. Personally, I particularly like how you highlighted the role of assurance in creating trust and confidence in sustainable products. So thank you for highlighting that, Khun Sirivipa.
Thank you.
So ladies and gentlemen, I trust you find the presentations useful and informative. Now is the time for us to dive deeper into some of the key information shared by our panelists in this panel discussion session. And thank you for those of you who have submitted your questions either via our Q&A function here in Zoom or via the chat function in YouTube. So we will try to respond within the time available, but I do have to apologize if we cannot address all of your questions to the limited time. And panelists, on this juncture, I would like to invite you to turn on your video before we start with the panel discussion session. Okay, to kickstart our discussion, I would like to perhaps start with you, David. I mean, obviously, one of the things that been going on around us in this space is there has been so many information available around us, and of course the different stakeholders, including accountants, particularly are trying to grasp this different information that are available to them. I mean, with the number of activities with respect to the standard setting and reporting requirements, for example, with the IAASB, AFAC in Europe, the SEC in the US. What do you think, what are the main issues that we should be focusing on as a profession, and how could this impact sustainability assurance?
So okay, I think that, you know, at a high level, we have to just keep focused on the fact that we need a rationalized, harmonized, and as global as possible system for reporting on sustainability matters. We just have to avoid unnecessary, costly regulatory fragmentation, particularly given the progress that's been made by the IASB and other initiatives. And I think that the data that we present and found in our study kind of indicates that the voluntary and multi-framework approach really doesn't work and doesn't serve the needs of investors. There was a survey from the CFA Institute last year that asked, that asked investors what they wanted, and they said a consistent global baseline that allows for regional or market-based adaptation is best. 60% of investors said that. Another 18% said a single global approach. That's 78% of investors in that global survey sort of asking for some sort of global approach. So that's what I think investors want. I think that's what the profession wants. But yes, we have all these initiatives that you've mentioned that are in process. So what do we do as a profession? I think in our comment letters, I think in our conversations with policymakers and regulators, we have to call for as much alignment among these initiatives as possible. Alignment in key concepts, alignment in standard structure, alignment in terminology, alignment in metrics. I think the goal is that when companies collect information and report on material ESG information, they ought to be able to do it in a manner that effectively meets requirements that are global as well as jurisdiction, right? So this interoperability and equivalency, I think, is an absolute key with all these various initiatives going on. Initiatives should not reinvent the wheel either, right? They should rely as much as possible on existing high quality frameworks and tools, and this will help cohere things together. We see this in what the IASB has done in both of its exposure drafts, in its reference and use of TCFD framework and industry specific requirements under SASB. We also need alignment between initiatives and frameworks that address the needs of investors versus those that address the needs of broader societal impact reporting. Again, with the IASB, we see this with the recent memorandum of understanding between GRI and the IFRS Foundation. I think that our research shows that assurance follows reporting, right? 91% of companies are reporting something, but only half of them are actually assuring something. So we have to keep that sequencing in mind. We need to get as close as possible to a global system that leads to a reporting foundation that can support high quality assurance and that kind of brings sustainability information on par with the financial information. So, it's a little bit high level, but I think we've got to fight as much as we can and argue as a profession for alignment in every way possible.
Yes, thank you. I just want to ask you a follow-up question on that, because knowing that there's some of our audience coming from private sectors, business companies today joining with us. I mean, why should they care? I mean, what should be the main driver for these companies to provide assurance on their sustainable information?
Well, I think, we've heard, great examples from IAPI today as to why, companies should be providing assurance, right? So it's to bring credibility and reliability to what they're reporting. It does build awareness inside the company for this information. It does drive better systems, data collection, and internal controls. It prepares for when mandatory assurance will be part of the regulatory environment, and it's just best practices, right? But I think, again, at a high level, if we're trying to enhance corporate reporting with sustainability information, it needs to be on par with financial information. So that's systems, controls, data gathering, high quality reporting standards, but it's assurance that brings trust and credibility and confidence to financial information. And it's only assurance, I think, that can bring the same level of trust and confidence to the non-financial information. Again, investors tell us, what's important to them. When asked, again, the CFA Institute survey, if sustainability assurance should come with some level of auditor assurance or review. 64% of the respondents to that survey said yes. Only 19% expressed a preference for third-party consultant reviews, and only 16% said assurance wasn't necessary. So again, investors are telling us that assurance adds value. So, this is all a journey, right? We've got to get the reporting so we can then have the high quality assurance. We've got to get from limited to reasonable. The IAASB is doing its work to make sure that assurance providers have the tools that they need to do the engagements. So it's not a quick process. But I think if I try to put myself in the shoes of a board director or of a CFO or a senior manager in a company while things are still evolving, I would take comfort if I'm providing information to a stock exchange, or if I'm putting information in a public domain, from having that information assured. I think that makes sense if I'm not taking a tick the box compliance approach as a director or as a CFO, right? If I'm actually looking at the value that assurance brings to my financial audit, to financial numbers, if I take the same approach on sustainability, I'll see that value for the sustainability assurance as well. So I've got one personal prediction, if I can say this with my American accent. In the US, the SEC has proposed that within 2 years, greenhouse gas and other information would go from limited to reasonable assurance. So, given the regulatory environment and the culture of the US companies and the SEC, I'll make a prediction that maybe the US will lead, the industry, the profession, companies to reasonable assurance from limited assurance faster than in some other jurisdiction. So a bit of a personal hope and prediction.
And thank you for sharing that, David. And I think it's important to have that, a change of mindset from everyone, not just those in the companies or part of the business, to understand why it is important to establish this linkage between the financial and also the sustainability informations. So once we have that, understanding, hopefully our journey together will be quite a smooth one. I know it's been quite a long and challenging journey for many of us. So hopefully through sessions such as today, we will continue to build the awareness towards why this is important, why it's important for us to keep doing this, to continue doing this. So thank you for highlighting that, David. Okay, next, I will perhaps to dive deeper into the standard part, and then next on the engagement part. So let me go to Lynn first and maybe talk more about the assurance engagement on sustainability related information. Lynn, you indicated that the IAASB does not intend to align its assurance standard setting with any particular reporting frameworks. So will that create uncertainty regarding how to conduct an assurance engagement on information prepared under the dominant frameworks which are emerging? I mean, for example, the IAASB disclosure standards that's currently being exposed, or perhaps the GRI standards?
Thank you very much for that question. The IAASB is framework neutral with all of its standards. So just starting with the ISAs and financial auditing, we don't use IFRS specifically. We make them framework neutral so that it can apply not only to the international standards, but for particular national jurisdictional needs. So we are following that same approach, and when we're looking at sustainability reporting, we intend to continue what we have done in the sustainability guidance, and indeed in 3000 and greenhouse gases, of being framework neutral. And that means that as new frameworks emerge, as frameworks merge, and as different jurisdictions do things in different ways, the standard still applies. So does that mean that we ignore the frameworks entirely? Of course not. When we are looking at a particular requirement or looking at application material, we make sure that the requirements and the application material are practical, so that they will actually work with what is ever the dominant framework at that point in time. To give you an example of why this is important, if you go to the examples in the EER guidance, EER sustainability guidance, they go across a large number of frameworks. They were only put out just over a year ago, and already some of those frameworks have been merged. And so this is a rapidly developing area. We have to be pragmatic, we have to be practical, and we have to be principled. And the principle is we will stay framework neutral. And we think it's probably the best way to avoid the fragmentation and give the best assurance we can to those investors and the wider community that are using this information.
Thank you, Lynn, for providing that clarification, because I think it's important for our stakeholders to understand that the reason behind why the board is being a framework neutral in terms of your process in coming up with these different standards and guidance. Because I think from our observation, that's one of the questions that continue to come up whenever we have such discussion, because I guess perhaps with the comfort and familiarity of many of us in terms of adopting and implementing specifically IFRS, for example, in many jurisdictions, we always associated IFRS with the specific assurance standards is issued by the board, for example. So it's important, I guess, to understand why the board is being framework neutral in terms of for their standard setting. So thank you for that clarification, Lynn. So for the next one, perhaps I would like to go to Ibu Ningsi, because we received a questions that perhaps is addressed to you because of the Indonesian context, but I believe this could also be a general questions that should also be relevant to the different jurisdiction, Ibu Ningsi. So with the two proposed IASB disclosure standards stating that sustainability reporting will be connected to the financial statements and released at the same time. In your view, Ibu, does it mean that it will be more efficient and effective for the financial statement auditor to also perform the assurance on sustainability reporting of the reporting entity, Ibu?
Thank you, Pak Oki, for a very good question, very interesting. This is really my personal view. Yeah, yes. Definitely, it will be more efficient and effective for the financial statement auditor to also perform the assurance on sustainability reporting of the reporting entity. Being an auditor for many years, doing the risk assessment, understanding the business, understanding the entity control environment, understanding the IT environment, and all those things, I believe that those are the requirements also for performing assurance on sustainability reporting. In addition, auditors, financial statement auditors, have also gained understanding on the process, what could go wrong on the process, and then the controls on several key processes in the entity that will impact the financial statement. At the same time, they also have gained familiarity on the IT system used by the entity that they audit, and the most important thing, they understand the data about the data management, which are very important for performing the sustainability, the assurance on sustainability reporting. So all this knowledge gained during the audit, the financial statement audit, are critical and necessary to perform a high quality sustainability assurance engagement. Therefore, in my view, and I hope Pak Hendang in here also echo my view, that the financial statement auditors are ideally and even well suited to lead limited and reasonable assurance engagement on sustainability report, and it will be more effective and efficient for the financial statement auditor to perform the sustainability or EER assurance. So linking back to the two proposals issued by IASB, there are several things that I recall during the presentations by Rafi last week during the B20 site event. The first one, this proposal make it clear there will be connection between different sustainability related risks and opportunities and between sustainability related financial information and information in the financial statements. And the other thing that I recall is the sustainability related financial information would be required to be part of the entity general purpose financial reporting and would be required to be published at the same time as the financial statement. So with this requirement in mind, I even more convinced that it will be more effective and efficient for the auditors and auditees to have the same public accountants who perform both financial statement audits and sustainability assurance on sustainability report or disclosure. And it will be more easier for the coordination and also for the project management. So that's my view, Pak Oki. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu. Ahenda, I noticed that you turned on your video just in case if you want to add anything to that. But
I agree with the statement of Ibu Ningsi. We are, as the profession, is more readiness to give the assurance because we have already accustomed for our investigation on such audits matters. So we are almost ready for providing the assurance service. Thank you, Pak Oki.
Well, thank you, Pak Endang. Actually, I would like to stay with you, Ibu Ningsi, and perhaps ask a follow-up question to that. I mean, in terms of the qualification needed, Ibu, to perform this assurance engagement, right? In your presentation, you indicated how accountants should have the capacity to do that. I mean, based on your observation, do you think our public accountants currently qualified to perform assurance engagement on sustainability reporting?
I think the answer is can be someday, but whether the skill set that they have right now is sufficient, maybe will need an enhancement. So in my personal view, public accountants are actually well placed to deliver a high quality sustainability assurance. Considering which I already mentioned earlier, actually we have the skill set. By doing the audit, we already have the assurance skill sets. We used to do the risk assessment. We used to basically to use the data, to do the analytical things, and we used to gather the evidence. And the most important thing, I think, the one that I mentioned in my presentation is exercising professional skepticism and professional judgment. This is something that actually we already have it. It's already embraced in us as the auditors. So I think the skill set is there. And the other thing also, a registered public accounting firm, when they provide this assurance, they are bound. They are bound with the ISQC 1. In the long run, maybe ISQM 1, and also we also bound with the same relevant ethical requirement. However, as I indicated in my presentation, in performing EER assurance engagement, the practitioner may need actually some competence in the both assurance competence and also subject matter competence. So this one, I think that we are maybe still lacking. So the engagement partner maybe need to have sufficient understanding of the underlying subject matter and also and sufficient subject matter competency in order to really be confident and ready to accept this kind of engagement. And I think public accountants still need to enhance additional skill such as business acumen. In order to perform this kind of engagement, I think business acumen is very important. Business acumen skills, communication skill should be able to articulate what we are trying to communicate in the assurance report, presentation skill, writing skill, and the other thing, the most important thing also, use of technology, yeah, and data analytics. I think that's very crucial. Yeah, so I think the public accountants, yeah, this is something new. We are in the journey. Yeah, when we want to do something, yeah, this is opportunity. Of course, there will be costs. Yeah, there will be an investment that we have to make. So we should be willing, yeah, to train ourselves, to equip ourselves, yeah, to be embrace, yeah, this a new opportunity. Yeah, so it won't be taken as it if. Yeah, so we have to invest, and the other thing also understanding the reporting framework. Yeah, the same thing like when we audit the financial statement. We understand the ISA, we understand the auditing standard, but we also need to understand the financial accounting framework. Without that, we cannot do a good quality audit. So the same analogy, we have to understand the sustainability reporting standards, yeah, the framework and the standards. At the same time, we also understanding the assurance standards, and combine this together, we will be able, yeah, to deliver a good quality assurance. That's it, Pak. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ibu Nisi, and it's great to see how I think you're very passionate on this, and definitely a lot of things that we've seen, including in our region in the last, well, especially in the last couple of years, is efforts, joint efforts, collaborative efforts from the different stakeholders to also to try to look into, well, continuously building the capacity of our accountants in the region, right? Because we know that, as you mentioned, it's about having the right skill set, expertise. We as a profession may have the values, the principles that have always been with us, but how we can further enrich those skill set, expertise that we have, especially with this different knowledge specific to this space, yeah, Ibu Ningsi, on sustainability. Lynn, I can see you just raised your hand. Would you like to add anything to that, Lynn?
Yes, I would, because I think this is an important area in terms of competence, and undoubtedly accountants can do a good job of providing assurance in this area, but this is an area that's not just us. There are other professions that provide really good assurance. And so we intend to write the standards for assurance practitioners from any discipline. So that means we'll, and there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, it allows you to have the multidisciplinary teams that you need for some of this work. Take, for example, the quality of water in a river. Accountants aren't, but I mean, we can look at the system, we can look at the risks, but actually taking the scientific data and actually analysing it and understanding it probably isn't sensible, but a good scientist can provide us with that input. So the first reason we think it's important is it gives you all of the skills that we need, and it's just been talked about, and it's multidisciplinary. The second, I talked about the risk of fragmentation. If we don't do this, we could well end up with really fragmented assurance. There's a couple of provisos, but so those are the two main reasons. The one thing we have to be really careful of, though, is in order to apply our standards, you have to comply with ISQM1 and the IASB code or the equivalent, and it's understanding the equivalent for other professions that's absolutely vital, because we don't want to reduce the standard at all. We want to make sure the standard is maintained, and that the actual competence is and quality are there. So yeah, I just wanted to add that, but not saying accountants shouldn't do it, but we should actually be very open to other practitioners. As an auditor general, you actually, we assure this information regularly. Well, I did my jurisdiction, And certainly we needed roading engineers, we needed people who understood climate, we needed sociologists. You need a number of specialists when you get material measurement for the organisation that you're dealing with. So I hope that was okay that I added to that one.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Lynn. Actually, you've also basically provided a very good response to one of the questions that came up in the Q&A, our Q&A. So having that multidisciplinary collaborative efforts is definitely an important part of how we should move forward with this in terms of our sustainability assurance. So thank you for highlighting that, Lynn. So I would like to next perhaps bring the discussion from the perspective of the regulators of the regulation on this sustainability assurance. I'm interested to explore Kon Sirivipa's view as a representative of the regulator on this particular topic. I understand that SEC Thailand, Kon Sirivipa, has just adopted a regulation on ESG disclosure effective this year. So does SEC also refer to international standards in endorsing this regulation?
Thank you for your question. As I mentioned, and you mentioned earlier, that we just compulsory the listed company to kind of disclose their sustainability information integrated with business report in the new disclosure form, what we call one report this year onward. As David just mentioned, that the alignment is the key element for the success of ESG disclosure. So in amending such law, ESG ensure consistency with the international standard, such as GRI or TCFD. And also we have to be considered that our requirement is in accordance with our Thai context as well. And to make sure that the listed company can disclose the ESG, can do the ESG disclosure as was required by the ESG. We also cooperate with other related organizations and organize capacity or building programs. For example, the seminar on a regular basis, and also provide some kind of manual and guidance for the listed company for their kind of preparation of the ESG disclosure. And that guidance is in accordance with the international standard as well. For example, it had to be in line with the UNGP, HRDD, NAP, and SDG disclosure as well. And as I just mentioned in my presentation, that Thai SEC is an official supporter for the TCFD. So we have to move further on to make sure that the listed company has disclosure. Disclosure is in line with the TCFD recommendation and also the international standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Kon Siri, and I would like to stay with you for the next question. But obviously, what follows adoption of these different standards or policies is, of course, their implementation, Kon Sirivipa. And I'm interested to hear perhaps your insight into this. I mean, what sort of mechanism does SEC Thailand use to ensure that ESG disclosure of listed companies is accurate and reliable and in line with your requirements?
Yes, I'm quite certain that the companies are familiar with financial assurance statements and the integrity they provide to financial disclosure. But nowadays, there is a growing demand for a similar level of assurance over sustainability data to verify the qualification of information that they disclose, collected, and reported. The company must ensure that they provide comprehensive non-financial information, which is the ESG disclosure, to meet with the environment reporting requirement from both regulators and broader stakeholders. As you just mentioned, that the sustainability assurance is not yet required in Thailand. But I think that one report is an important instrument to enhance ESG disclosure and a good starting point. Because right now, the ESG disclosure on the greenhouse gas emission has to be verified by the reviewer of a carbon footprint preparation of the organization, reporting, registering with the Thai Greenhouse Gas Management Association. or the reviewer whose work record the company regards to the widely accepted according to international standards. So it's kind of nature to make sure that the reporting on the GSG must be reliable. Moreover, as I just mentioned in my presentation, that the tone from the top process is the virtual key towards the successful implementation of the ESG disclosure. So when the listed company file the ESG disclosure with the ESG, that report must be considered and certified by the board of directors before submission to the SEC office. So it some kind of put the responsibility and the duties of the board of directors to make sure that the information disclosed is reliable and correctly. The next step is that the SEC closely monitor and study the development of the international standard related to the sustainability assurance. One is settled. We will coordinate with the related local authority to ensure that we will have the appropriate measure for both company and also the accountants. I think that the industry will call out the auditor to perform some kind of services in assurance of the ESG disclosure. And we normally will have some kind of what we call a regular meeting with the Federation of Accounting Professionals every quarterly. We will bring this issue up and discuss with them how should we can prepare our auditor to be get ready on this kind of services if it's what's called out from the industry. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kunjiri. Actually, to sort of conclude respond by the very important point of having that strong, I guess, between the director and the POs, FAP being the PAO in Thailand. That's something that we always continue to endorse in terms of how, especially also to support our PAOs to work closely with the regulators on different things, including on sustainability assurance. So thank you for highlighting that, Kunjiri. Okay, next, I'm interested to follow up on something that Kanaka-san has shared in his presentation on the importance of building awareness of and educate our accountants on why these are important. So Kanaka-san, I would like to follow up on this. I mean, what has JICPA done to make sure that your members understand the importance of getting the knowledge or the latest knowledge on sustainability?
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Starting from the JICPA President and Chairman, Mr. Tezuka's message has a tone at the top. JICPA determined to actively contribute to the establishment of the Sustainability Information Disclosure System. And it is also shared with JICPA members through the various media, including webinars. This is also extended to the launch of the syllabus of sustainability education I covered in my presentation. And also the green bond assurance guidance will be another example. JICPA is eagerly involved to contribute. I think that the syllabus is quite unique. So if you are interested, I can extend a bit more. Okay, maybe so project team is currently looking into the development of the syllabus, as I touched upon during my presentation, and the syllabus is planned to be finalized by the end of the calendar year. The one thing I'd like to emphasize here is we invited key stakeholders from the capital markets and also academia in this project to reflect their expectation to the professional accountants. And the syllabus will be having the basic or intermediate level contents, as well as the advanced contents for the people who will be involved in the sustainability assurance engagement. So still in progress, but I think that this conversation generated various insight for us to cover the contents for our profession to be a professional of the sustainability assurance engagement. Yep.
Yes, and thank you, Takanaka-san, for highlighting that. And I think we very much look forward to hearing updates about this particular initiative, because as what you have also highlighted in your presentation, education, it's the important next step because eventually we need to educate our members, the PAOs need to educate their members, we need to educate the accountants to make sure that we have the right knowledge, the expertise needed to continue and to deliver our services and to meet the demand of our stakeholders as well. So thank you for highlighting that, Takenaka-san.
Thank you.
Well, David, I would like to bring this back to you actually as a representative of IFAC, the global organization for the accountancy profession. I mean, if sustainability information is indeed a true opportunity for our professions, what do you think needs to be done to win?
So I mentioned that a bit at the end of my presentation with respect to the call to action that IFAC published at the end of February. So, you know, Kevin Dancy, the CEO of IFAC, is very fond of saying, this is ours to lose. So what does that mean? So that call to action was a lot of his thoughts about the various steps and activities that the profession and each of us as individuals, us as leaders of PAOs, you know, us in the profession and firms need to do. So there's a lot of information on those 2 pages, but I wanted to kind of delve a little bit deeper into the 2 main ones, right? So, you know, recognizing that, you know, all of us around the world are at different sort of places in the journey, you know, in terms of ESG development, sustainability development, 2 things we ought to all be able to do. We all, as a profession, ought to be able to get behind and support what the IASB is trying to do, right? To put together disclosure requirements for this global baseline of investor-focused information. That's the building block approach, being able to understand and explain how investor focus plus societal focus plus jurisdiction requirements can all fit together and align with one another and not compete with one another. I think that's important. We should, if we can, we should be commenting on these exposure drafts from the IASB, you know, lending our professional expertise, be it very technical or be it on some of the you know, the more thematic things that are important, like alignment. We should, where we can, be talking to our local policymakers and regulators about, you know, what the IASB is doing and what steps need to be taken locally so that when those standards are finalized, they can become reporting requirements within our own local jurisdictions, right? IFRS standards for financial accounting have gone through this process in over 140 different jurisdictions. Something similar needs to happen with respect to the standards that will come from the IASB as well. And we need to, importantly, when local jurisdictions are setting up boards and looking at what standards should be set by a local board, again, try to align that with what's going on with the IASB or with GRI. So the second thing, I think, so, you know, it's supporting the IASB in the ways that I just described. The second one, I think, is supporting the profession, right? There's been so much that's said already, you know, on this panel, right? That we're at the center of information flows and decision-making, right? That makes the profession unique, whether it's sustainability or whatever the subject matter is. That our skills and competencies, our judgment, our ethical foundation do apply. That's been said very well already, right? To sustainability information. And we have a central role to play in connecting sustainability information with the financial information. Our profession is uniquely qualified to be able to do that. We have a global reach, you know, for the large networks. It serves global markets, global clients, and global supply chains. And the data demonstrates that, you know, the profession is doing well. We have 2/3 of the market share, you know, not evenly distributed. So the challenges ahead of us that we need to keep up the momentum, and we seem to be on the right track. But again, as Kevin would say, it's ours to lose. There's no mandate coming. We have to keep focused. We have to do the things. And it's a real alignment of interest between, you know, what is obviously an opportunity for the profession, but it's also the profession's responsibility from a public interest perspective. The two really go hand in hand when we're talking about sustainability reporting and sustainability assurance.
Thank you, David. In the interest of time, perhaps I would like to wrap up our discussion by asking this final question to all of our panelists. And I will invite each and every one of you, perhaps in the opposite order. So I will invite Konsiri Vipa first. So panelists, briefly, I mean, what is your advice for our participants? I mean, in terms of their role in sustainability assurance, what they could do as a next step following our webinar today? Vipa.
Thank you. I think that company now are continuing to see increased pressure on ESG issue. So corporate boards and government leaders will face rising pressure to demonstrate that they are adequately equipped to understand and oversee them. So it is more important than ever for companies to be able to deliver high quality reporting and ensure that communicate sustainable competitive advantage effective. Therefore, I think that the role of service providers on sustainability assurance is become more and more important in creating credentials for preventing greenwashing for auditors. I think that in order to play this role, they need to keep update on development of the assurance standard. For example, by IASB, one standard sector have clear direction on development plans of assurance standards. Audit firms themselves shall consider whether they have enough resources and expertise and be prepared to deliver that service, I think. For the SEC, we will closely monitor and study the development of international standards related to sustainability assurance as well. Once it is settled, we will coordinate it with the related local authority to ensure that we will have appropriate measures for both company and accountants in accordance with the Thai context, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Vipa. Takanaka-san.
Right. I think that it is very important to engage with your clients and discuss about sustainability topics and issues. There are so many sustainability-related areas relevant to professional accountants, but you can't learn everything you need in one day, right? So by having engaged communication with your clients, you will understand where you should start and also how you can utilize a learning platform, such as the syllabus I introduced. So I expect more accountants come to this space to support your clients and also to develop their reliable sustainability assurance practice. All right.
Thank you, Takanaka-san. Ibu Ningsi?
Yeah, so I think the business leaders and the profession should go hand in hand and in the same directions. Yeah. So I would like to re-emphasize my quote. Yeah. So if you are the business leader, I think the time is now, yeah, for your organizations to disclose the ESG performance in a way that matters and is trusted to key stakeholders. On the other hand, if you are the profession, public accountant, then getting ready now is quite critical, yeah, for our profession, public accounting profession, to be future ready to enter this exciting opportunity in sustainability assurance in order to serve the public interest and, of course, to remain relevant. So I think embrace and continue collaborations and keep the momentum. Thank you, Pak Oki.
Thank you, Ibu Ningsi. Lynn?
Thank you very much. My advice would be to keep doing what we've been doing in the last 2.5 hours, and that is upskilling. And so upskilling on sustainability issues, both reporting and assurance, I think is vital for the profession at present. And that would be my first piece of advice. My second would be quality is important. And we should always strive for quality. And quality happens in this space when you understand both the subject matter and the assurance issues. So pay attention to both and make sure that what you provide into this ecosystem is of a high quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent, Lynn. David, final words.
All right, well, I feel the pressure. Thanks for leaving me till the last here, right? So I think I have to go back to that call to action, right? So when we put it together, we tried to put ourselves in the shoes of professional accountants who work in different practices as professional accountants, right? So if you're a financial auditor, then, you know, auditing financial statements, you've got to be talking to your clients about climate change, if it's material or not, and deciding what should or shouldn't be disclosed in the financial statement audit, right? If you're a professional accountant in business, you have to be part of that solution of bridging the gap between the ESG information flows and the financial information flows, right? You're on the ground, you're right there, you have to help bridge that gap. We, as professional accountants, to be professional, we have to take charge of our own learning and our own education throughout our careers, right? So whether it's CPD or seeking out certifications or seeking out internal training that is available, there's so much momentum pointing towards SASB, GRI, TCFD. There are training courses available in those areas. So don't tell my education director that I just said that, but it seems to me that those are three key areas that any professional accountant can kind of go source out on themselves and get certified in those three ways. And then, you know, if you have the access, you know, to talk to policymakers or regulators or whomever is appropriate, you've got to advocate for smart policy that includes the ISSB initiative.
Thank you, David. And panelists, thank you very much for that insightful sharing and informative and excellent discussion. Plenty of important takeaways that all of us can bring back to our organizations and stakeholders. Several things that perhaps I would like to highlight from our point of view as the organizer. One is that it's important for our stakeholders, including those of the accountancy profession, to continue building awareness towards sustainability issues, including assurance of sustainability-related information. Adoption and implementation of globally accepted standard is an important part of building a global ecosystem of sustainability reporting assurance. And building on one of the key takeaways from our discussions in the region on sustainability last year, there needs to be a sense of urgency from everyone involved. So this is important so we can identify what needs to be done to respond to the changing demand and expectation from our stakeholders together. We certainly are looking up to IFAC's guidance on how the profession will move forward with our collective efforts in this space. And last but not least, education is an important next step and should be in everyone's plan. AFA, together with our member organization, is committed to continue with our regional capacity building efforts, including exploring opportunities to work with partners and stakeholders on building ASEAN accountants' capacity and expertise on sustainability. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that should be the end of our webinar today. I hope each and every one of you will bring back what you have seen and heard today to your team, organization, or institution. I mean, it is important for us to keep building on the momentum and continue our discussion in this space. This webinar is the first of a series of webinars and discussions under our 2022 sustainability agenda. So we're very much looking forward to continuing our collaboration with our partners and stakeholders, to present you with opportunities to share and learn, as well as engage with your fellow ASEAN accountants. So before we conclude, please allow me to highlight a couple of things. One is that continuing with our 2020 sustainability agenda, AFA, together with our member organization, the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, or ACCA, would like to invite you to join our next webinar on May 12, 2022. So this particular webinar will be focusing on the SMPs and SMEs perspectives on sustainability. This is a complimentary webinar, but places are filling up fast. So make sure to register now by scanning the QR code shown on your screen, or you can go to the link provided. I would also like to perhaps invite you to follow our social media accounts in Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook to get the latest information about this webinar and all of our other events and activities. Please don't forget to complete the post-event survey. So this is a prerequisite for your e-certificate of participation. You can scan the QR code shown on your screen right now, or you can go to the link provided in the chat column in Zoom and also in YouTube. And please remember that the link will remain live for 24 hours only. So make sure you complete the post-event survey. Last but not least, on behalf of the organizers, AFA, EIP, and JICPA, I would like to thank once again our panelists, David Maiden of IFAC, Lynn Provost of IAASB, Ibu Kusumaningsi Angkawijaya of IAPI, Shinichi Takenaka of JICPA, and Kon Sirivipa Supantanet of the SEC Thailand for the excellent sharing and exchanges. Our appreciation also to you, our audience, for your participation today. My name is Auki Pratama. I look forward to welcoming you at our next event. Stay safe, take care, and thank you.